let's talk about a car that is so iconic it basically invented its own subculture. The Toyota AE86, also known as the Hachiroku, which literally means 8-6 in Japanese. This unassuming mid-80s Corolla is beloved by drifters, by JDM purists, and by anyone who appreciates old-school, lightweight, rear-wheel drive fun. On paper, it's a boring economy car from the Reagan era. In reality, it's a motorsport legend with a cult following big enough to fill an entire mountain pass, and I assume there's an 86 meter where they probably do this. If you are a fan of the anime Initial D, you already know the story. A teenage tofu delivery driver in a panda-colored AE86 outdrifts the local street racers using the power of technique and a sprinkling of anime magic. But the 86's real-world accomplishments go far, far beyond a single anime show. It played a major role in grassroots drifting, touring car championships, and defining the wider tuner scene. So, why should you buy one? After all, it's a 30-something-year-old Corolla with an engine that might struggle to go up a hill. But the Hachiroku's magic is deeper than a dyno sheet. It's about balance, driver engagement, and old-school JDM styling that's like a fine wine, it just gets better with time. Let's peel back the layers and see why the AE86 is worth the hype and the headache of searching for parts older than you are. Back in the early 1980s, might be out of frame.
Nope.
Could be. Toyota churned out Corollas by the millions. Most were front-wheel drive econo boxes that took you from point A to point B, and hey, even sometimes point C, with minimal fuss. But few of the 5th-gen Corolla lineup, chassis codes AE85 and AE86, retained rear-wheel drive, making them perfect for an era that was about to discover the joys of sideways action. Technically, the 86, sold as the Corolla 11 or Sprinter Turano, I can never say that word depending on the front-end design and market, was not intended as a high-end performance sports car. Toyota gave it a rev-happy 4AGE engine, 1.6 liters, dual overhead cam, 112 to 130 horsepower depending on the market and version. For a lightweight chassis under 2,300 pounds, that was enough to be lively, even if, obviously, not mind-blowingly fast. Still, the real game-changer here was the combination of rear-wheel drive, independent front suspension with a live rear axle, great chassis balance, and a high-revving bulletproof engine. The 4AGE was known for reliability and tunability. Toyota's own motorsport ambitions helped push the 86 into the spotlight. In Group A and N2 racing in Japan, skilled drivers discovered that if you kept the revs high and the tires grippy, you could embarrass more powerful cars through the twisties. Meanwhile, the nascent drift scene was picking up in the mid-80s, led by legends like Keiichi Tsuchiya, the so-called Drift King. He used the AE86 extensively, showing that technique could trump raw horsepower. And that, of course, kicked off an entire movement of Hachiroku owners hitting their mountain passes, the toge, perfecting their heel-toe downshifts, and controlling slides with the throttle. Yes, the 86 was overshadowed in raw power by Nissan's turbocharged S chassis or Mazda's rotary rockets, but it earned respect for its handling, its agility, and its mechanical simplicity. If you wanted a pure driver's car unadulterated by turbos, the 86 was the underdog with that NA4AGE that could deliver. Over time, it appeared in everything from Japanese touring car championships to local drift competitions, Initial D the anime, Formula D the series. By the time the 86 rolled off the line in '87, it was already cemented as a legend in the JDM enthusiast world, which is kind of odd because these cars usually gain notoriety posthumously after they've been discontinued. Now, of course, we can't talk about the 86 without getting into Initial D, the manga and anime series that turned a simple tofu delivery car into a global phenomenon. Debuting in '95 for the manga and '98 for the anime, Initial D followed Takumi Fujiwara, a high school kid who unknowingly honed his drifting skills delivering tofu on twisty mountain roads. His mount? A two-tone Panda Turano 86, complete with a tofu shop sticker on the door. Almost overnight, fans around the world fell in love with the humble 86 outclassing heavier, more powerful machines on tight mountain passes. It showcased drifting as an art form and the Hachiroku as the perfect brush. The series was a cultural explosion in Japan, and it got dubbed or subtitled for foreign audiences. It spread the 86 gospel to the West. JDM enthusiasts who had never seen or heard of the car were suddenly clamoring for them, or at least slapping Fujiwara tofu shop stickers anywhere they could on their car. This pop culture boost inflated the 86's image and price, let me tell ya. The once cheap economy coupe became a sought-after collector's item. Some collectors wanted a pristine example in panda paint. Others dove into drifting, trying to replicate those cartoonish slides. Either way, the initial D-Effect turned the 86 from a niche cult classic into a mainstream JDM icon up there with Supras, Skylines, and RX-7s. Even after decades, that effect has not faded. Go to a drift event, check around the used JDM market, and you will see 86s commanding some stupid prices, to be frank with you. Partly because they're genuinely good to drive, but mostly because, well, they're the star of one of the best-known automotive animes of all time. So let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Why buy an 86 now? Don't, that's the video. Just, they're too much money.
Why?
Well, in the era of turbocharged everything and insane horsepower numbers, should you buy one? Yeah. It's a simple answer. It's driving engagement. It's analog. There's no traction control, no stability control, not even ABS in many cases. You've got a 5-speed manual, you've got a torquey little 4-cylinder that loves to rev, and rear wheels that will kick out at the flick of your right foot. It's extremely pure in a way that modern cars seldom are. When you hop behind the wheel, you'll notice the car's small dimensions. Visibility is great though. The steering is direct, and the gear shift has that mechanical notchiness that feels satisfying. If you are used to driving modern cars with numb electric power steering, the 86's feedback can be a revelation. You feel the road texture, you feel the weight transfer, and every minor input translates immediately to the chassis. Sure, you are not going to win a drag race against a minivan or any sports car, honestly, but the joy is in the corners. The 86 rotates with minimal effort. It's almost telepathic if your suspension is sorted. Grip it and rip it on a twisty back road and you will grin ear to ear even if you're not going warp speed. Drifting? Well, the limited power means you have to rely on technique, skill, momentum, weight transfer, which is why so many professional drifters recommend it as a car to learn in, although not so much now because they cost like a house. Plus, there's that intangible sense of nostalgia. You're piloting a piece of JDM history, a time capsule from the golden era of Japanese sport compacts. Every rattle and squeak might remind you it's from the 80s, but that's of course part of the charm. See, it's raw, mechanical bliss. You might be thinking, okay, so it's pretty fun stock, but what can you do to this thing? Well, the 86's 4AG engine has an almost endless aftermarket, especially in Japan. You can find all the usual suspects, but one of the coolest things people do on these is individual throttle bodies, and they throw some cams in there, they tune it, and you've got this super high revving NA motor that sounds really cool and still has that NA characteristic of the car. Of course, people do swap these things, SRs, Beams motors. Generally, you're not seeing V8s in them, but people do put upgraded 4-cylinders. I'm sure someone's doing a K-swap in this. If you are, just drop it down below. I want to see it. Suspension upgrades are, of course, also abundant. You've got coilovers, you've got anti-roll bars, strut braces, poly bushings, everything you need to take that 86's 80s suspension and make it handle like a modern car. If you're all about drifting, of course there are angle kits, of course there are quick ratio steering racks. If you're grip racing, if you're going to a track day, you're going to want a well-balanced setup that lets the rear rotate without being too tail-happy, which these cars are very tail-happy, so you want to kind of check that in. Now, of course, there's the visual side. Most owners go for the panda paint scheme or slap on just those like wider aftermarket flares reminiscent of the old race cars. There are countless aftermarket wheels you can get right down here in the description below. Click the link. If you need ideas, hit us up. We've got you covered. The platform's simplicity makes it easy to work on, and the global community means you can find build logs, how-to guides, specialty shops in nearly every corner of the world. Now, with all that said, keep in mind that the 86 is an old car. You might have to hunt for a rust-free chassis or pay a premium for a clean example. But if you are passionate about building a vintage JDM icon that can still hang with the modern sports cars in the twisties, or at the very least just in style points, the 86's mod potential is massive. Now, one of the biggest perks of buying an 86 is the community. There's drifters, there's track guys, there's classic JDM purists, and they form a tight-knit circle around this car. You'll of course find dedicated 86 forums, Facebook groups, and even local meets depending on where you're at. There's something special about the camaraderie when you are working on a 3-decade-old Toyota that has become a symbol of DIY tuner culture. Parts availability. You knew we were getting to it. It can be a mixed bag. On the one hand, the 86's popularity means there are companies who are making parts for it. However, it is an 80s Japanese car. The market is limited. There's not a lot of money for companies to make by producing parts for this because there's a fixed supply of these things, right? So, some of those parts might be kind of hard to get. Of course, OEM stuff is impossible. Good luck, have fun, hit Yahoo auctions. Rust can be a problem. Broken interior parts can be a problem. There are some replacements, but again, it's not the broadest market, so companies aren't going to pour money into R&D for these things. Still, the synergy of the global community exists, and if you're persistent, you can find nearly anything from new old stock parts to LSD rebuild kits. And if you are into classic Toyota restoration, you'll appreciate how many small shops and enthusiasts have stepped up to try to keep these cars on the road. Just be prepared for some shipping costs on those overnight parts from Japan, and of course the occasional eBay bidding war if you want pristine original JDM parts. So, let's be real here. Buying a 30-year-old car means dealing with potential headaches, and the 86 is no exception. There are a lot of things that can break, but here's some common ones. Rust is the Achilles heel of most Japanese 80s cars, but the 86 is especially prone to it in the wheel arches, the rockers, the spare tire well, and the lower door seams. Always inspect these thoroughly before you buy, but don't let a little rust tear you off. The 4AG is robust, but if neglected, it can suffer from oil leaks, worn rings, fried valve train components, etc, etc, etc. Do a compression test and do a leak down to give you peace of mind before you buy one. Now, suspension and bushings, this is really just kind of old car stuff, but decades of use will degrade rubber bushings, struts, ball joints, etc, etc, etc. Upgrade to poly components or fresh OEM replacements is a must. Just do it. Interior plastics, the 80s used a lot of brittle plastic that will crack or warp over time. Good luck finding certain trims in mint condition, so you probably just want to either live with it or like wrap fuse casings. Electrical gremlins, wiring harnesses can and do become brittle, connectors might corrode, rats chew your wiring, and certain sensors or relays must be tough to source. Not as complex as modern cars, but still worth noting. But guess what? Maintenance on an 86 is straightforward. There's an engine in a bay with a lot of room, it's easy to wrench on, and the mechanical nature of the car means there are virtually no electronic nightmares. Regular oil changes with high-quality lubricants, a proper tune-up, and keeping an eye on your oil, coolant, all that kind of general fluid stuff should keep your 4AG humming. Most owners, of course, do their own work, from minor fixes to rebuilding their entire car in their garage, thanks to the wealth of resources online. So, yeah, you're gonna be babysitting an old Toyota, but the payoff is you will learn to appreciate the mechanical heart of your car in a way that's tough to do with modern sealed lid engines. Plus, once you handle all the basics, the 86 can be a pretty reliable weekend toy, or even, I don't know guys, like we put daily duty in the script, but like I wouldn't daily an 86. It's gonna be uncomfortable. Imagine picking your date up and she's like, why does this rattle? And where's the AC? And what is that noise?
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Go buy yourself a new Corolla and your 86, right? So over the past decade, 86 prices have gone bonkers. In the early 2000s, you could pick one up for, I don't know, $5 grand-ish, right? Now, you're looking at 5 figures for a beat-up one. You want a clean one? Keep going, right? Collector's market, initial defect, thing we can't talk about on YouTube that happened in 2020 inflation. All these things add up for a massive, massive increase in the price on these. Is it worth it though? Well, if you buy a good 86, you maintain it well, you keep it clean, and you don't crash it, its value is going to hold where it's at or even climb. There are special editions, there are rare trims that can fetch top dollar at auction. The same goes for any documented builds done by reputable tuners, especially if it's a Japanese shop and you just keep it how it is and maintain it. But let's be honest, if your main focus is flipping cars for profit, the 86 is probably not the best bet for you. The real value is in owning and driving a slice of JDM history, and you of course cannot put a price on the smile you get when the rear end steps out around the corner and you nail that perfect countersteer. If you do eventually sell it, there is always a buyer looking for one of these things waiting to fulfill their Hachiroku dream. So the bottom line here, While it may cost more upfront than an average 80s Corolla, the intangible returns, the fun, the community, the nostalgia, are worth every penny for those who crave that raw analog driving experience. It's also probably a safe investment. They are pretty rare, and if you buy a Panda one, it's probably gonna go up. Not investment advice. Now, of course, we're a wheel company, right? So we'd be remiss not to mention the 86's iconic stance with a set of period corrector modern wheels. A lightweight rear-wheel drive layout practically begs for wider rubber at the back or a square setup if you're going drifting. Classic JDM wheels like the Watanabe RS, SSR Formula Mesh, Advent A3As look timeless on the 86. If you want something more modern, NK, Rays for the Grand Light line and the TE37s work. They all offer designs that suit the Hachiroku shape. These things, generally, you're going to want to put a JDM wheel on it, guys. I'm sorry. I don't care about the rep versus wheel debate. It's irrelevant, but just put a JDM wheel on these things. 14s, 15s, 16s, although 16s are a bit big. A nice fitting set of wheels, though, with modern rubber will make all the difference when you are dancing on the edge of grip. For maximum style, people do go with low negative offsets, flared fenders, and that head-turning stance. Others prefer a more subtle OEM Plus approach. Probably one of those cars that actually looks better with a flush wheel and tire setup than a stance setup, but to each their own. A nice wheel and tire setup, though, can highlight the 86's boxy lines, improve handling, and complete the classic JDM aesthetic. If you are hunting for the perfect wheel setup, guess what? Again, we're a wheel company. Click the link down below. Because, of course, a legendary car deserves a legendary set of wheels.
Of course!
So let's bring it all back together here. Let's wrap it up. Let's close this puppy out, huh? It's loud, it's old, it might require a little bit of detective work to find one that's not rusted to bits or overly abused. But if you cherish the raw thrill of driving and you want a car that helps shape modern drifting culture, the AE86 is a worthy addition to your garage. It is not winning any drag races, that is for sure, but it is going to connect you with a machine that forces you to drive well and rewards you when you do. Each rev of the 4AGE, each tail-happy corner, each squeak from the 1980s interior, these become part of an automotive experience that you just can't replicate with modern tech-laden rides. Add in the anime legend status, the bustling global community, and the potential to build it to your heart's content, and you have got a recipe for perpetual smiles. So, if you are ready for a dose of old school JDM magic, and you don't mind turning wrenches now and then, mostly now, the 86 might be your perfect dance partner. Just be warned, once you catch the Hachiroku bug, there is no going back. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have an 86, drop a comment down below, add it to our vehicle gallery on our website. You click the link down below to do that as well. If you're looking for wheels, again, shameless plug, we sell wheels. Yeah, right? You pick up a set. Hit the subscribe button. That's how we keep doing this. Hit the like button if you liked it. Hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. Drop a comment down below. Tell us about 86. Tell us about Initial D. Tell us what you ate for lunch. I don't really care, just as long as you drop a comment. And I, of course, will see you in the next video very soon. Thank you so much for watching.